The two right hands of Roger and Whitebeard coming head to head. I find this matchup to be pretty fitting since they are both the second in command of the Legends, both have had one-on-one encounters with both the Admirals and Blackbeard, and we have both of them, despite being from the old generation, doing whatever it takes to pave the way for the new one to take over. They've also previously fought in the past, which is pretty cool to note, but what would happen if these two currently came head to head in an all-out fight? Well, that is what we are going to be answering today. To start off, let's talk about Marco, since I rarely ever talk about bro scaling in the first place and have been wanting to for a while. Marco the Phoenix is known for being able to turn into a phoenix, engulfing his body with mystical flames that are said to be capable of regenerating any attack instantly. Now, some may use this databook statement and say he can regenerate infinitely, but it's shown in Wano that this is not the case, and he definitely does have a limit. And rather, it seems like he can just absorb any attack due to how high his stamina is. Think of it as like a character in Xenoverse with a maxed out stamina bar. That's basically what Marco's regen is looking like. We see that his fruit allows him to withstand a barrage from Kizaru, but can also resist full-on blows from the likes of Akainu purely because of his fruit regeneration. And even with low stamina, we see him having King and Queen just questioning even why he's still standing even after they tried jumping him. They legit thought he died, and we see him come in out of nowhere and save Chopper from King. Also, while rereading chapters for this video, I find Marco even managing to block a fucking blast breath from Dragon Kaido, which is fucking wild considering I did not even know this feat existed until researching for this video. Now, in terms of stats, we know in speed he's definitely at least on a similar tier to that of the Admirals, being able to intercept Akainu and Kizaru and also stop Aokiji from harming Luffy. In the anime, we even see Kizaru trying to turn into light, but Marco manages to kick him into the ground. And even while weakened, he can intercept King and low-key blitz Queen. As for his durability, well, that's kinda in correlation with his hacks, but we've seen him not die from a Kizaru beam and King and Queen assaulting him. And the Kizaru beam feat in particular is impressive because this is when he had the Sea Prism on, meaning his Devil Fruit was not being taken into effect. As for his AP, this is where Marco is kind of lacking in, with his best feats being just having King cough up specks of blood and sending Kizaru and Aokiji flying into rubble with kicks. But these two didn't really suffer any significant damage from this, which is why I don't really like using that statement of Marco equals the Admirals in regards to AP and durability, because he doesn't really scale to them at all. However, despite that, Marco is definitely strong, but he isn't me and gets carried by regen for the most part. He needs to start hitting the gym. Now, let's talk about Dark King Rayleigh, also known as Roger's Marco. Ever since his introductory fight with Kizaru and him prepping Luffy for the time skip, everyone was already on board with the idea of Rayleigh being powerful. Unlike Marco, we know Rayleigh has advanced armament, but we don't know how much of a degree he could use it, especially at his age. But if he is substantially above Marco in stats, he could just use advanced armament to remove that regen factor his Devil Fruit has, as Haki does nullify the abilities if the user is strong enough. Rayleigh in his introductory fight was shown capable of stopping Kizaru's kill blow to Zoro and even go as far as to keep up with him in a sword fight. Kizaru being an admiral, which is one of the most powerful titles you could have in the One Piece verse. We see Rayleigh not only being able to combat Kizaru, but also intercept and react to his attacks. We also know he trained Luffy throughout the time skip, and it's somewhat implied both Gear 4 and Snake Man probably are sub Rayleigh, since during Luffy's training he managed to tap into these powers, with Gear 4 and Snake Man both being forms being capable of taking down beings like Doflamingo and a fellow Yonko commander, that being Katakuri. Though this doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things, since the power cliffing between before and after Wano is the biggest jump in power these characters have reached, so being stronger than, let's say, Katakuri, all things considered, is really not the most impressive thing in the world. Rayleigh as well has had the likes of Blackbeard sweating, though this mainly was because of his reputation, and Rayleigh admits later on that he would lose in a straight one-on-one anyway. And the last thing to note when discussing old Rayleigh, and arguably the most important thing, is his god-awful stamina. Now you see, after scrapping with Kizaru for a whole 5 minutes, he starts huffing and puffing for air and is straight up sweating during his encounter. This is due to Rayleigh being a boomer, so it's given that his stamina is not what it used to be. Now, judging from what I analyzed, it is not looking good for old man Rayleigh. When comparing both fighters' encounters with Kizaru, we see Rayleigh being able to scrap with Kizaru for 5 minutes before then sweating and being implied by Luffy to be losing. Meanwhile, we have Marco reacting and casually blocking attacks from Kizaru that are intending on killing Whitebeard, and despite this, Marco is still able to press him into the ground. Then we see, despite being injured and having to regenerate at Marineford, which we know costs stamina, we have him being able to block Akainu's blows. This alone should solidify Marco's regeneration being able to withstand anything that Rayleigh can utilize. And he should at least be able to keep up with Rayleigh long enough so that he gets worn out. Meanwhile, Marco could just be constantly regenerating from all of Rayleigh's hits. Which makes sense as characters like even Big Mom and Akainu, who should both scale above Rayleigh in terms of stats, can't put Marco down, and Big Mom says that she needs her amps to put him down. This plus his interactions with Akainu and Kizaru should prove Marco is capable of scrapping with Rayleigh and damaging him. And again, Blackbeard being scared of Rayleigh but slapping Marco isn't an argument, as he was mainly scared of Rayleigh due to his reputation, and Rayleigh literally says a couple pages later that he would lose against Blackbeard. Now let's look at the stats. In terms of AP, Rayleigh could probably hit harder technically because he has advanced armament, but I feel like that's kind of a cop-out. And in literally every other department, Marco and Rayleigh are either equal or Marco's just better. Marco's durability, endurance, and hacks should all be superior to Rayleigh's, along with him being relative, if not faster than Rayleigh, since he's fighting not only Kizaru but also characters that are above Kizaru. There is literally no case for Rayleigh winning, and Marco is just gonna stomp this old boomer out with his blue chicken feet. Sorry, not sorry.